My dad said, "Your kid's sweet but she's not going far. Not like your niece, she's sharp." Everyone nodded. My 7-year-old daughter just shrunk in her chair. I said, "Fair. Then your granddaughter can figure out private school without my checks." My sister froze. And then It had been building for years. The way they talked about my niece like she was some kind of prodigy and treated my daughter like a background character in her own life. Every time we were together it was the same script. "Look how well Ava reads. Did you hear Ava won the math award? Ava's teacher says she's gifted." My daughter Lily would be sitting right there, coloring, eating quietly, sometimes trying to join in. And someone would always say something like, "Well, Lily's sweet too." Like she was a dog they were being polite about. When Ava got into the gifted program in 1st grade, my mom made it her entire personality. She printed out the email from the school and passed it around like it was a college acceptance letter. They framed Ava's artwork. They filmed Ava reciting poems and made us all sit through it during Christmas. And Lily, who also got a good report card, who also had a poem picked by her teacher for the bulletin board, didn't even get a mention. I'd ask them, "Did you see Lily's drawing? Did you hear she read her first chapter book on her own?" They'd nod, smile, then go right back to Ava. Every single time. Once Lily asked me quietly in the car if something was wrong with her. I said no, of course not. She said, "Then why do they only love Ava? That's the kind of thing that stays with you." I still hear her voice asking that. I think that's the moment I started to see everything differently. But I didn't say anything to my family. Not yet. I told myself they didn't mean it. That maybe I was being sensitive. That maybe they just thought Ava was more outgoing, more talkative, more gifted. But as time went on it got harder to pretend. My brother didn't help. He loved playing the cool uncle role while casually making jabs. Called Lily Quiet Lily in this mocking way. Once joked that she was probably going to be a poet who lives with cats. At Thanksgiving he leaned over and said maybe Lily would grow up to work for Ava someday. My mom laughed. Said he was just being silly. And I kept swallowing it. Year after year. Smile through it, Monica. Be the peacemaker. Be the one who keeps the family together. But everything changed last weekend. We were at my parents' house for dinner. One of those Sunday nights they insist on, where you eat dry chicken and pretend you enjoy each other's company. Lily had her markers and a little sketchbook. She never goes anywhere without it. She sat next to Ava, offered her a purple marker, and Ava rolled her eyes and said, "I don't do cartoons." No one said anything. Then my dad, while pouring himself another glass of wine, said it. Just loud enough for the whole table to hear. "Your kid's sweet but she's not going far. Not like your niece, she's sharp." There wasn't even a pause. My mom nodded. My sister looked proud. My brother just kept eating. I saw Lily shrink right there. She didn't cry. Didn't say anything. Just lowered her head and started packing her markers back into the case like she didn't want to be seen anymore. I don't know what came over me, but I looked up and said it flat. "Fair. Then your granddaughter can figure out private school without my checks." I wish I could describe the look on my sister's face. It was like I had flipped the table over without touching a thing. Her mouth opened slightly like she couldn't decide if I was serious. But I was. She stuttered something about misunderstanding and my mom tried to smooth it over, saying, "You know, your father just says things sometimes." I stood up. Told Lily to get her bag. And we left. That night my phone started buzzing nonstop. First my mom. Then my sister. Then my brother. One voicemail after another. "Are you really cutting off tuition? Why are you being so dramatic? You know Ava's school depends on that money." No one asked if Lily was okay. Not one of them asked how she felt after being insulted in front of her family. So I didn't answer. They'd spent years pretending my daughter didn't matter. But now they were about to learn what it felt like when I decided they didn't matter either. By Monday morning I had 7 missed calls. 4 texts. 3 emails. And 1 very long voicemail from my sister where she tried to sound calm, but her voice cracked when she said, "We're relying on you." That's when I knew she still didn't get it. She actually believed I'd cool off in a day or two, write another check like always, and pretend like my daughter hadn't just been humiliated in front of her entire family. Like I hadn't watched Lily silently pack away her markers after being dismissed in the most casual, cruel way possible. They thought this was about a single dinner. It wasn't. It was about every single time they chose Ava. Every time they ignored Lily. Every time I stayed quiet just to keep the peace. I didn't answer anyone that day. I picked Lily up from school, took her to the park, and just sat there watching her run around with a couple of kids she just met. She was laughing again. That laugh I hadn't heard all weekend. That night my sister sent the second email. A little more panicked this time. She'd attached Ava's tuition invoice, like it was a bill I'd forgotten to pay. She added a paragraph about how Ava would be devastated if she had to leave the school mid-year. Then she said something that sealed it for me. "We don't want this to become a big family rift. Lily won't even remember this in a few years. That was her argument. That Lily would forget. That the damage wasn't permanent. What they didn't get was this. Lily already remembered. She remembered everything. And so did I. The next day my brother called. He acted like we were just catching up. Hey Monica. Crazy weather, huh? Look, can we talk about Sunday? I didn't say much. Just waited. He launched into this whole thing about how Ava's school is competitive, how pulling her out now would derail her momentum. He called my reaction a little strong. Then he added, you know Lily's still finding herself. Ava's just more driven. I didn't even say goodbye. Just hung up mid-sentence. Wednesday morning my mom came by my office completely unannounced. She brought me coffee and sat down across from my desk like we were two friends working through a small disagreement. She said families say things they don't mean. That I knew my dad could be blunt. That Ava's school year had just started. Then she said something that actually made me laugh out loud. We don't treat Lily differently. You're just more sensitive about her. I asked her one question. Did you notice Lily didn't speak for the rest of dinner? She didn't answer. I told her the payments were done. No more tuition. No more emergency fund for her and dad either. If they needed something they could figure it out the same way they expected Lily to figure out being ignored. She said I was blowing things out of proportion. That I was making this into something it wasn't. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just stood up and opened the door to my office. That evening I went through every financial link I had to them. The tuition autopay. The shared savings account. The health card for my dad's prescriptions. Gone. Thursday my dad texted. Just 2 words. Grow up. That was it. Followed by another from my mom a few hours later. We're still family. But that wasn't how family acted. Not in my world. Not when they pit children against each other. Not when they watched one shrink and still reached for the camera to film the other. That night Lily showed me a new drawing. It was a girl standing in front of a huge storm. Lightning, wind, everything. And she was holding a small red umbrella. No one else was around her. But she didn't look scared. She looked ready. And that's when I knew. I wasn't just cutting them off. I was starting over. By Friday the weight of what I'd done finally settled in on them. Not because they suddenly understood how deeply they'd hurt me or Lily, but because the consequences were finally real. My sister had stopped pretending. She was calling twice a day now, leaving voicemails where she sounded more unhinged with each one. Her last message said Ava's school had called about the missing half of the tuition and asked if Ava would be transferring out mid-year. She begged me not to do this to the kids. That's what she said. Not to Ava. To the kids. Like my daughter was now a threat to hers. Then came the text from my brother. I messed up. I shouldn't have said what I said about Lily. No excuses. No sarcasm. That stopped me for a second. Not because I was moved. But because it was the first time in years he even admitted he was wrong. That man never said sorry to anyone. He thought being the only son gave him some kind of immunity. He followed up with another message. Seriously. I was out of line. You were right to be mad. And then finally, can we talk? I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I didn't believe it. That apology came days too late. It came only after the money stopped, after the panic started. When my daughter's heart was slowly closing to people she should have felt safe with, they were too busy laughing at each other's cruelty. So no, I wasn't ready to talk. Saturday morning he showed up. Unannounced. Holding 2 coffees like we were still close, like we were still the kind of siblings who could sit on the porch and vent about life. He barely got 2 words out before I cut him off. I said, you stood there while she was humiliated and you said nothing. You joked about her future. You laughed. Now you want to talk because Ava's school called? He said he didn't realize it had gone that far. That the comment from Dad wasn't meant to be cruel. That they didn't think Lily actually noticed. That word again. Didn't think. They never thought. They assumed Lily didn't notice because she didn't cry. Because she didn't yell. Because she didn't tell them to shut up. But that's not how Lily works. She goes quiet. She folds in. He carries it like a rock in her pocket. He said Ava didn't mean to act superior either. That maybe they should have paid more attention. I told him the only reason they were suddenly interested in Lily's feelings was because their foundation was cracking. They didn't miss us. They missed the safety net. Then he said something that made me stop cold. He said, I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking it's okay to treat people like that. It took him years to say it. But it still wasn't enough. He pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. It was Lily's horse drawing from dinner, the one she folded up after Dad's comment. He'd found it under the table after we left. He said, I've seen Ava draw. This is better. I stared at the photo for a while. Not because I cared about the compliment, but because he finally looked like someone who understood he'd failed someone innocent. I still didn't let him inside. That afternoon I took Lily to the bookstore. She picked out a sketch pad, a hardcover one. She said she wanted to start a real collection. I bought her colored pencils, the expensive kind, not the ones that snap in half after one use. She didn't talk much about dinner or the family, but I noticed she stood straighter that day, walked with a little more certainty. She didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. She didn't know that Ava's school sent a second notice, that my parents tried to move some money from our old shared account and found it locked, that my sister was now reaching out to extended family trying to mediate the situation, as if this was a misunderstanding and not a decade of buried resentment finally rising to the surface. They were struggling to hold things together, and none of them could call me for help anymore. The power shift had happened. My brother saw it first. The rest would see it soon. And they were going to learn that when you ignore a child long enough, sometimes the child isn't the one who breaks. Sometimes it's the ones who thought they'd never lose control. By the following week, it was clear the old balance of power in the family was gone. My silence had done what years of asking politely never could. It forced them to look at what they'd become. And they hated it. But what I didn't expect was what happened on Wednesday afternoon. Lily and I were coming back from the library. She was flipping through a book on animals, chatting about how she wanted to draw a tiger next, when we pulled into our driveway and saw my dad's car already there. He hadn't called. No warning. He was just sitting on our porch with a manila folder on his lap like he had something important to deliver. I told Lily to go inside and start her drawing. She didn't ask any questions. Just nodded and went in. I walked over, arms crossed, expecting a lecture or a guilt trip. What I got instead was something I hadn't heard in years. He said, "I think we got it wrong." I stood there, unsure if I heard him right. He opened the folder. Inside was a letter, handwritten. From him. To Lily. He said he'd been thinking about the last few years, and how often they'd praised Ava without stopping to see who they were stepping over. He said Lily reminded him of me at her age. Quiet. Observant. Always listening even when people thought she wasn't. I didn't say anything. I wasn't ready to soften, not yet. Then he pulled out a second piece of paper. It was a check. A large one. He said he was pulling money from one of his accounts to open something for Lily. Her own education fund. No one else's name on it. Just her. He said, "You don't owe us anything anymore. Not tuition. Not meds. Not holidays. Not even visits." He stood up, placed the folder on the bench and added, "But we owe her everything." Then he walked off without waiting for a reply. I sat down, opened the letter and read every word. It wasn't perfect. There were still hints of pride, of ego. But he'd written it in his own handwriting. Not typed. Not dictated by my mom. Just him. And for the first time he didn't try to make it about how he was raised, or how things were different back then. He just owned it. That night Lily showed me her drawing. It wasn't a tiger. It was a girl sitting at a table drawing in a room full of noise. Around her were people, some talking, some laughing, some ignoring her. But her head was down, focused. And behind her, in the background, one person had finally turned to look. I didn't ask her who it was. I didn't have to. But then came the unexpected part. The next day my mom showed up too. Not alone. With Ava. And Ava was crying. I opened the door and before I could say anything, Ava blurted out, "I didn't know I was hurting her. I thought everyone liked me more because I was better." She was sobbing. My mom looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. I let them in mostly because Lily was already behind me, peeking out. Ava walked straight to her and handed her something. It was a drawing. A copy of Lily's horse sketch, the one from that night. Ava had tried to redraw it, but in the corner she wrote in messy letters, "I want to draw like you." Lily just nodded. Quiet. No smile, no hug, just a small nod. But she didn't walk away. That night I didn't cry. Thought I would. I thought that moment would break me. But instead I felt something else. Control. After years of letting them lead, letting them shape the family dynamic, I had taken it back. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. And now they were the ones trying to keep up. But I wasn't finished. Because next I was going to remind my parents exactly who had been funding their retirement security for the last 5 years. And the card they'd been using to live a little more comfortably? I had plans for that too. Monday morning they hit the wall. Hard. I knew exactly what time the card would get declined. I'd been tracking the automatic alerts for months. My mom always went to the same store, same time, every week, 8:45 a.m. She'd pick up her overpriced bread, some imported olive oil she didn't need, a few magazines, and then hit the pharmacy for Dad's prescriptions. The moment the transaction failed, I got the notification. By 9:02 the calls started. I ignored all of them. Then came the text from my dad at 9:16 sharp. Did something happen to the card? I didn't answer. I waited. Because I wanted them to sit in the confusion for a little while. Not out of cruelty, but because for the first time in years, they had to deal with something they couldn't control with a phone call or a guilt trip. At 11:40 a.m., my mom sent an email. Subject line, urgent. Please respond. She wrote, I tried to use the joint account this morning and something's not working. Your father's medication is sitting behind the counter and I couldn't pay. Can you look into this, please? No apology. No mention of Sunday. No mention of Lily. I responded after lunch. The account has been closed. I won't be covering your expenses anymore. You'll need to make new arrangements going forward. 2 minutes later, my phone started ringing again. I let it buzz until it stopped. Then my sister chimed in. Group text, of course. She loves drama when there's an audience. This has gone way too far. You've made your point. Mom and Dad are completely blindsided. Can we just sit down and talk like adults? I stared at her message for a full minute before replying. Happy dog, but not about you. Or them. This is about Lily. If there's no space for her at the table, then there's no table. No one responded after that. But then came the part one didn't expect. That evening, just after sunset, my dad showed up at my house. Alone. He looked different. Not angry. Not arrogant. Just tired. Worn in a way I'd never seen before. He stood on the porch for a long moment like he wasn't even sure what to say. When I opened the door, he didn't ask to come in. He just held up a red envelope and said, For Lily. I took it. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. And behind it, a printed document from the bank. He'd opened an education fund in Lily's name. All on his own. A decent amount, too. Enough to cover several years of private school if we chose to go that route. I looked back at him. He said, I sold the boat. That boat had been his baby. Bought it right after he retired. Named it after Ava. Literally painted her name on the side. He used to take her out every summer. Took photos, made videos, even framed one of them for the living room wall. Lily was never invited. Not once. I think that moment standing on our porch was the first time he realized how cruel that had been. He cleared his throat and added, I didn't see her. That's on me. He didn't try to defend himself. No long story about how things were different when we grew up. No blaming my mom or my brother or Ava. He just stood there and owned it. I let him in. Not because I'd forgiven him, but because Lily came into the hallway holding her sketchpad and I wanted her to see what accountability looked like. He knelt down, which I'd never seen him do, not even when he got his diagnosis, and looked her in the eye. He said, I made you feel small. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Lily didn't cry. She didn't hug him. She just nodded and said, Want to see what I drew today? She flipped open her pad. It was a cliff. A tall one with a girl standing right at the edge, wind blowing her hair back. Below her, 2 small figures, one kneeling, one looking up. The girl wasn't looking down at them. She was staring out toward the sky. He stared at the drawing for a long time and then asked quietly, Is that me? Lily shrugged. Could be. That night he left quietly. No big speech. No expectation that everything would be okay. And I respected him more in that moment than I had in decades. But that wasn't the end. Because the next day my mom showed up. And she wasn't alone. She had Ava with her. And Ava was crying. I didn't know what to expect, but it wasn't that. Ava rushed up the walkway, tears running down her face, clutching a piece of paper in both hands. She didn't wait for me to open the door, she just called through the screen. I didn't know I was hurting her. I thought everyone liked me more because I was better. It wasn't some coached apology. She was sobbing like someone who had just realized they weren't the hero of the story. When I let them in, Ava went straight to Lily and handed her the paper. It was a copy of Lily's horse drawing, the one from that awful dinner. Ava had tried to recreate it, but under her version she'd written in clumsy block letters. I want to draw like you. Lily looked at it, then looked at me, then back at Ava. He said, You can. But you have to stop making people feel small. Ava just nodded, crying. My mom didn't say much. She looked like she'd been holding in tears for days. She sat down on the edge of the couch and just said, We were wrong. About everything. And for once she wasn't talking about Ava. She wasn't trying to spin it. She just sat there humiliated. And maybe that's what she needed. That night I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt something better. Peace. But I wasn't finished yet. Because I had one last dinner planned. One where no one would look away. One where everyone would finally understand who Lily was. And who I had become. I didn't tell anyone I was planning it. Not at first. I waited a full week after Ava's apology, after my dad's envelope and my mom's quiet breakdown on the couch. I waited until they had all started texting regularly again, cautiously polite as if tiptoeing around a sleeping giant. Then I sent the invitation. Not a group text. No emails. I printed actual cards, simple white paper, black ink, and mailed them. One to my parents, one to my sister, one to my brother. I even sent one to Ava. The invitation was for Sunday dinner. To my house. No dress code, no explanation. Just the time, the address, and one line at the bottom. Lily has something to share. I didn't ask Lily if she wanted to do anything special. I let her decide. She was the one who came to me 2 days before and said, "Can I show them my art? Like a real exhibit?" I asked her what she had in mind. She said, "I want to hang it in the dining room. All of it. Even the one from the night they said I'm not going far." I said yes. Sunday came fast. I cooked, but nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread. Simple. I wasn't hosting to impress them. I was hosting so they could finally see what they'd ignored for so long. At 5 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. First my mom and dad. Both looked nervous, like guests walking into a courtroom. Then my sister and Ava. My sister clutched a bottle of wine like it was a peace offering. Ava looked down at her shoes. My brother showed up last, alone. For once, he didn't speak first. I led them into the dining room. The walls were covered in Lily's drawings. Dozens of them. Horses, tigers, trees, cliffs, cityscapes. One of a girl floating over a storm, one of 2 figures trying to climb a mountain while another reached the top alone. At the center wall, I'd framed the original horse drawing. The one she folded away that night. Below it, a single line in Lily's handwriting. "You didn't see me, but I was still here." They went quiet. Lily stood in the doorway holding her sketchpad. I asked if she wanted to say anything. She nodded once. She said, "These are mine. I've been making them since I was 5. I don't draw to show off. I draw because it's mine. It's how I talk." She paused, then looked at Ava. "When people ignore you, it makes you feel like you don't belong in your own family." I didn't like how that felt. I hope no one else here does it again. Silence. Then Ava stepped forward. She looked at one drawing, the one with the floating girl, and whispered, "This one's my favorite." Lily didn't smile. She just handed her a blank page from her sketchpad and said, "Draw something next time. Then hang it next to mine." That's when my dad spoke. He cleared his throat and said, "Lily, I want to say something too." He didn't get on one knee this time. He just stood in front of her, hands behind his back. "We made a mistake. All of us. We were too loud about one child and too quiet about another. That wasn't love. That was favoritism. And I'm sorry." He turned to me. "And Monica, I've never respected you more than I do right now." He wasn't trying to win me over. I could see it in his face. He wasn't performing. Then to everyone at the table I said, "If you want to be in Lily's life from now on, it's on her terms. She doesn't owe anyone performances or proof that she's good enough. She already is. I won't tolerate anything less than full respect going forward." My sister was crying now. My mom just nodded slowly. Ava pulled out a pencil she'd brought and started sketching on the page Lily gave her. And for the first time in years we sat at that table. All of us, and there wasn't tension. There wasn't resentment. There was something else. Recognition. Not just of Lily but of me. Of the line I'd drawn and held when no one thought I would. And as we ate, Lily looked around and said softly, "This is the best dinner I've ever had." No one dared to argue. They finally saw her. And I was finally done fighting to be heard. We were already winning.